I am cursed. What with, you may ask? Well, imaginary person asking questions that I made up. Too much thought is the answer. I get a thought in my head, I follow it down to crazy rabbit holes, into crazy tangents, and I just find out some weird things, which I suppose technically is good. I'm learning. I'm constantly learning, and I always think that's good. Learning is a lifelong pursuit. But recently, I was seeing things about, like millennials down on boomers because they screwed up the future, and boomers down on millennials because they think they're entitled to something for nothing, and Gen X just sitting there kind of going, pass the popcorn. But they never seem to get involved, which is weird. But anyway, so I followed this thread through even further than I probably should have done. But I found out some interesting things about generations. The earliest sort of noted and not official, and we'll get to that in a bit, but noted and I suppose recognised generational boundary is the greatest generation. These are your grandparents and some, in some cases now, great-grandparents who fought during the war and, fostered that make, do and mend, we'll get through, have as much fun as you can because tomorrow you might be going to war kind of mentality. They appreciated life despite hardships, and that's good. I defy anyone to go to someone who lived during that period and say that they weren't the greatest generation. Just because they're old doesn't mean they can't kick your ass. So, following on from them, making perfect sense, are the baby boomers. Now, the name comes literally from the fact that there was a massive boom of babies, but they weren't all going to war, so there was more people. It's that simple. And this pretty much covered from the end of the war till about 1964-65, when the pill appeared and people were like, wait a minute, let's not have so many babies. Probably a good idea. So following on from that, we arrive at Generation X. It's a bit of a weird name. This pretty much covers from the 1964-65 period of the ending of the baby boomers to 84 tends to be an official figure. And these guys, are just that group. It's a 20-year group because 20 years works. It was the baby boomers window, so another 20 years, why not? It's as good, a definition as any. So, and they have been jokingly called the baby bust. This is when people were a bit less panicking about making sure that they had families, and this is where, the time periods where families were reduced from 8-9 kids as the average, down to the 2 or 3, as a general rule. Yes, there are still families even today who go for high numbers, but the average has shrunk over those years. This window was created by George Masnick of the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies. And he kind of went, well, there you go, it's a fair window. It's after everyone had suddenly gone, we need to make lots of babies because we've just been to war. And, he sort of put that window down. And then he also created the next generational group. Now, this group is unusual in the fact that it's not real. But again, we'll come back to that. This is Generation Y, which is pretty much from about the 70s to the early 2000s. They were kind of the kids that weren't fitting in that cool aesthetic of Gen X. And it was I don't know, Gen Y, whatever. You know what I mean? It was this weird thing where it's we need a name for this group because we've now started a weird trend of naming sort of 20-year gaps. But it's a fake made up thing. It doesn't matter. Gen Y isn't a real thing. So if anyone ever mentions it, there you go. You can now say it's not even a real thing. So the next sort of officially demarcated group are the millennials. The ones that everyone seems to hate, even millennials. They seem to be sort of self-loathing and loathed externally, which is a bit unfair. So the name millennials came from Neil Howe and William Strauss, who, weirdly enough, dubbed it the next great generation. I'm not making opinions here, you know. But anyway, so, you know, they kind of figured out in 2004 that there needed to be an official thing. Gen Y just was so nebulous. So again, they kind of looked at a 20-year gap. Now, this 20-year gap was a bit weird. It went from 82 to... Originally, they went about 20 years, but they officially called it 2004 later on. So that's a 22-year window. Now, if you were following, you'll notice that Gen X covers till 1984. So this weird 2-year overlap. Unfortunately for me, I was born in 1983. So I am right smack bang in the middle of the millennial Gen X crossover. So that's confusing. And I know which one I would like to belong to. So what followed from there? If that covered 2004, we're 12 years down the line at the time of recording this video. So what is this generation? Well, effectively, you may as well call it the new Gen Y. There isn't an official name because millennials has already been taken, even though that only covered 4 years of the new millennium. It would be more sensible to have millennials cover, sort of maybe up to 2010. But as it stands, these lines of demarcation don't do that. So I think it'd be interesting, you know, if any of you want to get in touch with any official bodies who make up these things, give them your ideas. It'll be quite funny. But the important thing that I said, you know, we would come back to, is that none of this matters. There's nothing official. None of these are officially recognised terms. If anything, most of these names are either created or picked up at least by the media. And only through media proliferation do they become widely accepted. We wouldn't even have a thought about Gen X, baby boomers, Gen Y, millennials, whatever the next group's going to be called, if the media didn't use those terms. So, going back to, I suppose, you know, my earlier point of being right in the middle, it doesn't matter. I'm me. I'm Generation Me. And I think that's the most important thing that any of us can be, just ourselves. So until next time, as always, take care.